Hello, this is our group's presentation for the spring 2021 FIPT 104. We chose to do the Mary Pang incident. All right, so the Mary Pang incident, it was a fatal warehouse blaze that resulted in the death of four Seattle firefighters in January of 1995. The fire was ultimately determined to be arson, and the arsonist in question was Martin Pang. He was the son of the Pang family. Ultimately, the reason for the arson, it was a decline of sales in his family's Chinese frozen food business, and he was attempting to commit insurance fraud. He wanted to, burn the building down, collect the insurance money. Before the fire, though, he had told people that he was going to, commit the arson. So the ATF and the Seattle Fire Department, they were actually had Martin Pang under surveillance because he was like, hey, he's going to burn this building down. But when those dates came in December and he didn't burn the building down, they called off the surveillance on him. And originally, the building, it was constructed in the early 1900s. It was just a 60-foot by 60-foot brick walled structure. Then there was two additional 60-foot by 60-foot brick wall structures that were added later. They were going to be kind of effectively creating an L-shaped building with the intersection of the street there. We'll show that later on. And then during the 1920s, there was a regrading project that went underway in Seattle. So what this did is it actually raised the street level 10 to 20 feet, kind of depending where you're at. And so with that, they built up to meet the street level, and then we'll get into that later, why this is important. And then, yeah, so just like I said before, he was under surveillance, but then because there was no activity, ATF and the Seattle Fire Department, they called that off. But ultimately, they had failed to notice that there was 3,000 to 4,000 pounds of cardboard, fuel, car racing supplies in the basement of that warehouse, and an updated inspection had been completed on that warehouse since '84. So this is 10, 11 years later, December '94, January '95. They did know that it was an arson target when the firefighters were responding, but they were unable to anticipate the difficulties of the layout, and we'll get into that later. So here is an overview of, if you're looking at it from kind of an aerial view from South Charles Street, you can see the multiple stories here, but there's vegetation here. And if you're looking from 7th South Ave, it's going to look like a single-story building. And yeah, so viewing the structure from the outside, it was really difficult to relate to what the interior arrangement was going to be. And then just due to the different grading levels around the building, it was almost impossible for the engines to actually pull up close enough and the ladder trucks to get really up close to the building. And yeah, so that architectural facade from 7th South Ave, it really gave the appearance of it just being a single-story building, but there was a story below it. And then just over the years, there's a bunch of modifications that have been made to the building. Like there had been a stairwell at one point to connect the upper and the lower levels, but then that got removed. And then they had covered the wood floor with concrete to accommodate a health code for a food processing plant. And then that south-facing wall was covered by vegetation, and then that way the firefighters, they just had no way to do a proper visualization or a visual scene size up. And then just due to the the extensive changes that happened over this 80 years this building was around, it had exteriors that were brick, metal, concrete, stucco, wood, and then the different companies entering from different sides, they didn't realize they were on different levels. There was a lot of miscommunication inside the blaze. Like, oh, I'm on the first floor. No, I'm on the first floor, and it just wasn't. There was a lot of miscommunication, and it was not a cohesive, togetherness of all the units that were responding to this fire. And then, like I said, there was no pre-planned fire for this structure, and then it hadn't been inspected for 10, 11 years. And here, so we can see some more of the building where one of the lines made its ingress. And the fire, it was set at around 1700 hours, and the fire department full alarm was dispatched at 1903 hours. With that full alarm, it consisted of 5 engines, 2 ladders, a BLS unit, an ALS unit, air support, and then 2 command officers. Engine 10 was the first to arrive on scene, and they continued with the scene size up, and they established IC. They staged on 7th South Ave So when they were looking at it, it looked like it was just single story, and they noted that the fire appeared to be coming from a small shed that extended out from the wall and above the roof of the west wing. IC then requested 2 additional engines and 1 more ladder at 1910, and then 4 minutes later, the structure was upgraded to a full second alarm. Crews from engine 10 and 13 were the first to advance lines into the interior of the structure. They had the 3 attack teams, they used up the air supply and they were switched out, and then engine 36 would then enter into the building. On the west side, engine 5 was able to force entry into what was known as the bakery area. And you saw that a couple slides ago, but there was no smoke showing on the interior of that area. The crews then advanced the hose line and ladder to knock down fire spots on the roof. Engine 2 was then directed to provide a backup line for 5, and then around the west wing into the north wing. And then at that time, the crews found there was smoke but no fire. And so here we can see the staging of, like, there's a ladder truck here and the different, it's 13, 5, it's 10. Crews from ladder 1 found fire lapping onto the roof from the west side. Due to the intense heat, it was decided that they were going to cut a north-south trench to just help reduce fire spread from east to west. And then ladder 3 joined in those efforts. And then, so yeah, we can see here where they're posting up, command post. This is where engine 10 first kind of lined up, and then so if you're looking from this side, you're going to say, oh, okay, it's a single-story building, because that's the South 7th Ave looking over there. You just see it was a one-story building. And then engine 2 discovered the basement fire in the storage room, and then they reported that it was fully involved with flames, but no smoke or fire were coming out of that room. And it was discovered that the division designations were incorrect, and that the east side was reassigned to Division C and west side was reassigned to Division B. And the safety officer had arrived from his home, assumed incident safety officer. After reviewing the situation at hand, he expressed his concern that there may be a flashover and that a rapid intervention team should be prepared, as well as a 2.5-inch backup line. And then just, due to all the inconsistencies, all the observations, it was becoming obvious that a fire must be burning elsewhere in the structure, because, people are saying, I see smoke, or I don't see smoke, I don't see any fire. And then while there's crews from several different engines and ladders were there in the lunchroom area of the building, the northwest corner of the floor began to collapse. We'll see in the next slide. There was a pony wall that was built up, and it caused the ends of the floor collapse, and unfortunately several firefighters fell. So we can see here, there's going to be the teams. This is that area that collapsed right here due to a pony wall supporting this section of the floor. So you can see here where the joists, where the floor joists were. So this was part, when the building was raised to meet the ground level, this wasn't quite tall enough to make the floor level with the street level. So they built up right here, 5 to 6 feet to bridge that gap. It was made out of wood. So, the fire was licking away here, and unfortunately that weakened this pony wall, caused that to swing down, and the firefighters that were standing up here, they unfortunately fell into the basement. And then the body recovery of the 4 fallen firefighters started the next day, and the final body was recovered 72 hours after the incident. They all fell. So two managed to get quite a distance from where they believed to fell through the floor, but unfortunately all 4 firefighters did perish, and they believed to have perished from asphyxiation. And those firefighters are going to be Lieutenant Gregory Schumacher, Lieutenant Walter Kilgore, firefighter Randall Terlicker, and firefighter James Brown. So a lot of the issues here, it's going to be flaws in the structural design, just, having the floor. It was a wooden floor, concrete top that was supported by nothing but 2x4. And then just the unusual, complicated building configuration. It had been built up. It was a lot of piecemeal construction. There's no pre-planned fire for that. A lot of miscommunication. If you went in from different sides, you were on different levels, and they were saying, I'm on the first floor. No, I'm on the first floor. Even though they knew it was arson target, that didn't really change a lot of their strategy tactics. But the different vantage points presented different observation fire conditions. So it just ultimately was a combination of bad things. People who, our group consisted of myself, Donald, Kobe, Paul, Samantha, Trevor. This is our group project. Thank you.